knowing about you a little bit, like I know you've been somebody that has exposed yourself, not only, of course, jujitsu within itself and being willing to step into a ring or even, as you said, step into a street and fight somebody. That, of course, is its own hard thing in and of itself. But I know you've been so proactive in kind of, like I just said, going into nature. I know cold water immersion, things like that. You've continued to what I would call delayer yourself to find what is your true essence at the core. And now having something like a Parkinson's diagnosis, has all that lifelong kind of exposure to both natural elements and then just fighting itself, did it prepare you to be able to say, like, yes, I have this terminal diagnosis, but I know who I am at a root level? And here's where I'm going to interject a little of my own personal philosophy, is that as you delayer further and further, and a lot of times doing hard shit does this, is that you realize that there's an essence, and I would call that your God essence, that sits in the middle, that lives on forever. And when you're able to tap into that, external things can be happening. And in your case, you can get a diagnosis like Parkinson's. But when you've got in tune with what that is at a deep level and you understand just the powerful and everlasting nature of it, it doesn't have the overwhelming fear effect that how it would affect most people. Are you able, through a lifelong of just a battle and evolving your spiritual kind of sword, are you able to hold that perspective that I've explored and I know who I am on a deep level, so that the Parkinson's, yes, it's still a part of your reality, but it doesn't become this overwhelming monster?
Yeah, it's a very interesting to talk about that because for me, as first when I diagnosed, I was a monster in my life. What the hell? I don't know how to deal. I don't know what I'm gonna be. And then as I get my doctor explaining to me, he gave me a medicine, he tell me to do exercise. But I felt like this doctor was not exactly trying to heal myself, trying to make a difference. He's just trying to follow a protocol. After that, I seeking for all the doctors, healers, natural medicine doctors, everything I could hear and search about it. And I learned so much about it. So today I changed my life in a very positive perspective. I stopped eating red meat. I stopped drinking eventually beers or wine. I stopped to eat all the flours and refined flours and starches. I fast. I do physiotherapy 5 days a week. I do everything in the protocols. I do so many different supplements, mushrooms, and different uh, CBD oils. And so I do everything I could do to possibly heal myself. I'm focused not only in stabilizing the sickness, but improving. That's my goal, beat Parkinson. I'm not sure if it's possible. I'm not sure if I'm going to achieve, but in my mind, is another opponent. I have to be serious about it. I have to be honest about it. I feel like my physicality fades away, but in a way, in a very interesting way, some other elements within me growing, my spirituality growing, my capacity to keep myself in a very positive mindset is growing. My mental health is growing. My acceptance is growing. So I feel like even though I have Parkinson, I still evolving as a human being, not physically, but spiritually. And spirituality is something we all need in terms of to be connect with ourselves. If you don't have hope, if you don't have visualization, if you don't have faith, you pretty much, if you don't have mentally a good strategy to follow. So all the tools of the warrior, I bring in martial arts to my life, to live my daily life as a martial artist. So my opponents are somehow a way for me to learn from it, from growing from it. So I'm very positive. I'm doing everything I have to do to be at my best and still positive and still helpful. So that's something I learned from Parkinson. Not exactly I'm debating and I'm denying or I'm trying to be feeling something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just a process of life which I can live with. And if I can still inspire people, if I can still serving people, if I can still bringing knowledge, help, support for anyone, I feel like it's a great day to be alive and well. So it's hard for me to not feel like thankful, grateful, and hopeful.
Rickson, I love that mentality and that never surrender mindset that you take towards it. And I'm curious, how much of that mindset do you think you learned, on the mats doing BJJ, in the early years? Did did it instill that mindset in you, and then you applied that to everything, or do you think you had that mentality before jujitsu? And I guess how much of a role did jujitsu play in your overall mindset as a man now?
So it was a completely evolutionary process towards jiu-jitsu because at one point I was 19 years old and I watched my dad talking with an uh, uh, old fighter who fought him before. Was they are friends, and this guy invited my dad to go to the capital of Brazil to see a fight with this professional Zulu guy, which was 30 years old, uh, 200 something pounds, and 120 fights undefeated. And he was looking for somebody to fight him. And I catch the conversation and said, Dad, put me in, pull me in. And eventually my dad said, yeah, I don't have nobody here professional, but I have my son who would like to try. And I said, no, don't put your son. He's too young, only 19 years old. This guy's a monster. And as the guy tried to take my dad out of the deal, my dad got excited to pull me in to check it out. So end up, I set up the fight for a month from that date. And I went to Brasilia to fight, and I fought Zulu. And on the end of the first round, I was so exhausted, so tired. I said to my dad, Dad, I want to quit. I don't want to go back there. And that no even hurt me. He said, no, you're doing fine. You're going to do it. He's tired than you. You want to kick his ass now. And then I was debating with my dad, trying to argue, I don't want to go. My brother took me a bucket of ice and water. And then the bell rings and they push me in. And the way they said, 3 minutes in the fight, in the second round, I could capitalize and choke the guy out. That was exposed for me, my fears. If I was by myself, I was chicken out. So, and then I realized I have much more than what I expect to have. I could win, but my mind let me down. So even though it was a victory that night, I felt like I was needing to adjust that. And I start to understand how important it is to put the spiritual guidance in your life to accept even death, but never quit. So after that fight, I said to myself, I prefer to die than make myself quitting before the time. So next time I'm going to fight, either my brothers or my father throw the towel to save me, or I'm going to die in. I'm not going to quit anymore. In order for me to keep that mission, that vibe, I have to have acceptance of death, which is not normal for sport-like activities, but it's normal for Navy SEALs or SWAT teams or firemen who go up 10 level stories building to save a kid, and things can just go wrong and everything falls apart and he died. So some level of people, they accept death as a mission. And I educate myself not as a sport-like athlete, but more towards either I represent my family or I put my life to, because that's more than just a sport for me. That's the way I feed my kids. That's the way I find myself in the world. So I have to put everything I got just to represent that. And that was like the leading moment for me to start to putting spirituality on my life and accepting the fact, even if I cannot win, it's better die trying, because it's nothing better to do than just follow your mission. And that's what for me, a combination, like you said, I take cold showers in a very early age, like 30 years ago, already putting myself under cold shower pressure, because I felt like the feeling you have on the cold water is the same feeling that you're gonna die. It's an agonizing feeling. And if you stay there for too long, you die. So the fear your body feels, like the agonizing element, for me was a healing process, because I was putting myself in the cold water I could find, but not with the head out, because with the head out, it's just physical. When you go with a snorkel and go under the water with your face in the cold tube, you feel completely a different universe. You feel like agonizing. And I was just seeking for that kind of agonizing feeling, and then breathing and get my breathing under control. And as I felt myself in control, I was already up to leave the water. I don't want to stay there for too long, but just to make sure the fear of getting killed doesn't change my ability to keep calm and breathing correctly. So I was seeking for a preparation for the agonizing moments. So I was in that moment seeking for spiritual elements, acceptance, enlightenment, meditative state of mind, finding a zone. So all those doesn't come in with a normal training for sport. That's why I've been training for martial arts all my life. And I feel like a lot of those tools can be used for average Joes, for anyone who's trying to be, the best they can be. So you don't have to be a fighter to start to understand about your own strategies in life. If you're not strategizing, you're not a good martial arts. You have to know, you cannot go just with emotions. So be in peace to strategize, be in peace for visualizing, because my visualizations towards an opponent goes from an easy fight, a 10 seconds easy fight, to a basically die trying to win the fight. And I accept all the circumstances, all the visualizations, all the possibilities. So when it happens in real life, I've been there already. I already know. So you don't have to be a champion to start to strategize about how you're going to buy a car, or how you're going to make a relationship, or how you're going to win a sickness, or how you should do to do this or that. But you have to. If you don't, you let yourself in harm's way, because you're not just planning anything. So I started using those elements, those spiritual tools, to help me, not only in life, but also in my sportive career.